excited. Welcome to another episode of Learning Manhood. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for spending time with me today. God bless you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just sitting here trying to elevate a little bit every episode, do a little bit better every time, and you are spending some of your time with me, and I appreciate it. Today, I want to talk about something that I haven't touched on the show here yet. Two things that I find myself truly passionate about when it comes to manhood, fatherhood, being a intentional husband. But the other thing is healing from trauma. And for those of you that don't know, I'm a trauma coach, and I'm constantly talking to men about how to not only expose our traumas, but to begin to heal from them. And so today, I want to talk about the root of a lot of trauma as men that we need to start to begin to work through to begin to gives ourselves a chance to be the man we're actually destined to be. And the two things I want to talk about today are shame and guilt. Now, for this episode, I'm just gonna go through and kind of talk a little bit more about my story, talk about how we can relate and understand how shame and guilt impacts people in the Bible, and kind of unpack some of these emotions and how they kind of get you spiraling into the abyss, really. So today, shame and guilt. Bear with me if this is not what you think is relevant to learning manhood, then unfortunately you're in the wrong place, because it is very important. We cannot be who we need to be for our families and for ourselves if we can't begin to heal mentally. We all are carrying mental wounds and mental scars, and if we can't address them and begin to heal from them, we won't even see the trauma responses that we are inflicting on our own families, and then passing them down and passing them down and passing them down. We have a responsibility to heal ourselves, so that way we can truly be the leaders for our family and begin to help our family heal. We have to lay that foundation and that groundwork, so that way when our children become adults, they already understand that there's things in them that need to get healed, because we're not going to be perfect parents. But shame and guilt, these two emotions, they go hand in hand and can be a downward spiral into all kind of cousin emotions and habits. Like, shame made me think less of myself, made me lose my confidence, and caged me up from the possibilities of feeling loved. Guilt made me hurt and tormented in my waking moments. Like, I had to lie to myself constantly and try to ignore the guilt I felt all the time. And maybe my trauma isn't your trauma, but shame and guilt are universal. There are lots of reasons you would feel shame or you would feel guilt. For example, with the internet and social media, we face shame. Shame is like fed to us on a daily basis through advertising and influencers. And, I'm ashamed of myself. Like, I feel a type of way because I can't take my girl on these trips like these dudes is doing on Instagram, right? It's not the dudes posting the trips, right? It's your girl. And then she's like, oh, look, this person went here. And then you feel that shame of, I ain't balling like that. I can't do you like that. I'm ashamed that I don't have the money to show off like these guys. Like, I love watches. I do. But I have to stop myself, because I will see someone in a nice watch and be like, dang, man, like, I wish I had it like that. Like, I know how much that watch, set them back, but I don't know what they got going on. You know what I'm saying? Why am I feeling down on myself based on something that someone else has? I don't have the new cars. I don't have any of those things. And we can take it even a step further with shame and guilt. Like, I'm ashamed that I hurt a person that I love. I'm ashamed that a person that I love betrayed me, right? There are lots of instances where, if we even peel back, start at the father wound, there's a lot of men out there right now ashamed that they even have a father wound. So much so that they will deny that it exists, right? They will be, oh, my dad wasn't around, but I'm straight. Like, that ain't never really bothered me like that. Like, come on now. Come on. We have to be real with ourselves. We have to be real with each other. Like, there is no way that you had an absentee father and that did not affect you in any way, shape, or form. That's not feasible. But we carry so much shame behind it. We don't want to feel like, oh, I'm not one of those guys that my pops left and then I was, down bad and doing crazy. No, I stepped up and I did my own thing. But we don't realize that the fact that you stepped up and did your own thing was part of you trying to respond to that trauma. So these ideas are a lot more common than you would think. And when I tell you that you're not alone, whoever you are listening to me right now, when I tell you that you are not alone, I mean it. Like, you can walk into a grocery store, all these people, all these men are smiling and hustling and getting to it every day, trying to take care of their families and take care of their kids, love their wives the best they can. But they doing the mental math on the bill that they're about to pay for this food that they're about to feed their family with, right? They're they're trying to suppress their mental traumas over and over and over again. And we like to think that we're individuals in this, but I've talked to so many men and we are all dealing with the same thing. We are all dealing with these traumas and how they affect us and how we move. For example, I have been in the military for a very, very long time, so I know a lot of vets, obviously. And one of the things that we all share in common is PTSD, anxiety from PTSD. You cannot put, and I had the same conversations with members of law enforcement, right? You cannot have a group of guys that are all former or current law enforcement, former or current military, and go to a restaurant together. You can't. It's funny when you watch it happen, but we don't even notice we're doing it. Everyone will try to find a way to position themselves to where they can sit and they can see the door, right? And I understand most people would think, oh, that's a safety thing. That's a trauma thing. We are consistently feeling unsafe, even in environments that should be safe. That's trauma. That's PTSD. That's anxiety, right? Now, I understand that the world is not inherently safe. However, that is the fear of constantly having to be on edge is part of your flight or fight response, right? If you are constantly in fear of something happening, your body ramps up, your adrenaline is going, and if you don't ever find yourself feeling safe again, you stay in that state all day and your body never gets a chance to relax, and then you're just drained, right? You pass out at the end of the night. You don't get any good sleep because you wake up and you ramp right back up and you're right back at it. So these things are a lot more common than most people would tend to believe. Like, you have your own sense of trauma, and that's okay. The only thing about having trauma that's negative is if you're denying it. If you can accept the fact that you have trauma and begin to start to peel back those layers on what it is, where it came from, and how to begin to heal from it, then all is well. I like to talk to men about a method that I've called from the fruit to the root. Now, that was developed after reading a lot about what the secular sector talks about, the things that we do when we are faced with trauma, like what they like to call trauma responses. I took that idea of a trauma response. I do a thing because of a traumatic event that has happened to me. Like, I don't sit with my back to the door because there was a time in which I was surprised and that made me fearful, and it makes me feel like I'm a little bit in more control if I'm unable to be surprised. That's why I don't let anyone have birthday parties that are surprises, right? I don't, because I need that control and do not like being surprised because it sends me back into that space of where that time I was surprised and was immediately afraid of for my life. I choose to try to take as much control and awareness in a situation as I possibly can. That trauma response, we were calling the fruit, right? This incident happened, and this response is the fruit of that incident, just like fruits of the Spirit, right? If you're unfamiliar with the concept is that if you allow God to grow in your life and really harness what it is, his teachings, and how you are supposed to move in your life, you will display fruits of the Spirit. And because of that, you are going to be able to be known and seen as someone that follows Christ, right? So with that concept, I turned around and was like, if we can identify these trauma responses, we could then take it back and follow it back to the root of the issue. Where did this actually come from? Now, that is a good exercise to try to do for yourself. If you're looking at your own mental health and going, dang, like maybe there are some things I need to look at, start looking at your trauma responses. Start looking at how you move every day. What is it that you do that might be people think are a little quirky or part of your personality? A lot of us have been writing off personality traits that are actually trauma responses. Like, oh, you're always the funniest person in the room, you know, which really comes down to I'm scared to not be liked, so I have to force laughter everywhere I go. But these are things that we can further get into as we go along. I want to keep going with this train of thought because we often get caught up in the trap that thinking our specific trauma is different or special because it happened to us. In fact, the mental health in America, over 16% of Black or African American men have reported having mental illnesses in the past year, which is over 7 million people. Now, let's be real here. 7 million people that actually took the time to report or seek help. How many of us go undiagnosed? The point here is that you're not alone. I need you to understand that because once you understand that you're not alone, you can actually begin to heal. My laptop on my desk, it sits on 3 notebooks. I have 2 other monitors, and I'm going to keep it a buck with you. I was too cheap to buy one of those stands that look all fancy, and so it keeps my monitor and my eye line. But these notebooks were not designed to be a stand, right? They were designed to be written in. They were meant to be a repository of ideas, facts, and art. But now they have combined in their stand. It is unlikely these books will ever serve the purpose that they were designed for. And for that, I have to apologize for the trees. Like, my bad. But these notebooks are probably never, ever get written in. But just like these books, you were not designed that were not designed to hold up my laptop. You were not designed to feel shame and guilt. That's why trauma hurts physically, because we're not designed to hold it. That is how we start to have these physical manifestations of stress and our traumas and things like that nature, because we were not designed to have it. Now, let me give you an example. It's been a long day, and you're trying not to snap on your boss or your coworkers. And by the time you get home and sit down and you feel how tense you were, all of a sudden your favorite, as you sit down in your favorite chair at the end of the day, you feel yourself uncoil, right? If that sounds familiar, if like you sit down in that long sigh and you feel your shoulders drop, you feel your stomach unclench, and you can actually have a breath, that is your body feeling stress. Another examples like we talked about earlier, when you're sensing danger and adrenaline dumps into your system, you prepare for a pending attack. Like, this is a biological response designed to keep you alive, right? But if your body never gets a chance to regulate because you stay in that space, you get tired, you get sore, your muscles will start to hurt because you're constantly ready to take off running. Your body will go through it. We're not designed to hold on to trauma or guilt or shame. And I want to talk about what we were actually designed for. God designed us to live in a space of peace, to walk in his Holy Spirit and in grace. Fear, shame, and guilt are all tactics of the enemy to keep us down. Now, to highlight this, I want to go back to Genesis, Adam and Eve. When Adam was created, he feared nothing. He's in this garden. God brought forth all the animals of the world to see what he would name them. And that's Genesis chapter 2 and verse 19, right? He says, you're going to name all the animals. And I want you to think about all the animals in your local zoo. I want you to think about all the animals you've seen on National Geographic. I want you to think about all the animals that are in your neighborhood right now. He said, I want you to name them all. Lions, tigers, bears, hippos, wolves, crocodiles, all these things were walking right up to Adam, and he didn't flinch. There's no fear mentioned in the Bible at that time. He had no reason to fear. So he would just pet this giant cat and be like, yeah, cool. Your name's Lion. I like that. Now, I personally don't know if he was just keeping it funky like that and saying, yeah, your name is Lion. But, the point still stands. He had nothing to fear from these deadly animals. I'm not walking up to a lion and just going to pet it out in the wild. I'm not going to do that. I've seen what hippos can do to people. They look all cute, and we was playing Hungry Hungry Hippos as kids, but they're not about that life. They will take you down. I'm not messing with it. Adam had nothing to fear. So he just rolled with it. It wasn't until after they ate the fruit, when God was looking for Adam and Eve, that Adam cried out, I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid. He's eaten the fruit that he's not supposed to have eaten. The enemy has tricked him and his wife into eating the fruit that they are not supposed to be eating. They are hiding from God, and God calls out, says, Adam, where are you? And he said, I was afraid because I was naked, and so I hid. And there we have the first instance of fear, shame, and guilt all at the same time. God did not design us to have these feelings. We took them upon ourselves when we brought sin into the world. The good news is we can become closer to God and how he designed us so that we can get rid of shame and get rid of guilt. We have to appreciate where we're at when we're there, and we need to consistently be striving to make ourselves better. I have always had this concept in my mind that combining the church and combining therapy was the best way to healing. And that is because that was honestly the best way for me to heal. Wasn't until I was going to therapy, was doing all these things, was in and out of rehab situations, and was just trying to figure out what it was that I was missing. And I had listened to so many therapists for so long. I had the rhetoric memorized. I knew exactly what to say when I was in front of them to make them go, oh my God, you're doing so much better. That is so great for you. I was doing all the meds, going up and down, was dealing with all the side effects. I was doing all these things, and none of this was actually working. And it wasn't until I took the moment to actually start to pay attention in church. And when my pastor started talking about these concepts that God was talking about, that Jesus was talking about, and I was like, hey, that kind of sounds like what my therapist was talking about. And then I started to realize, wow, there is a lot about mental health in the Bible. And so as I started to peel back those layers, started to understand, I started to chase after this knowledge and learn, I began to truly understand what it meant to put theology and therapy together. And that is partially what brings Learning Manhood to you today, is combining these two aspects to try to understand how we can get better, not only mentally here every day for our families, but do so getting closer to God. There are verses in the Bible that I consider my anchor verses, and really spoke to some of the issues I was having at the time with my paranoia, with my anxiety, understanding that God wasn't just this mystical figure. He said that he was going to be my protector, my shelter, my stronghold, the place that I could go to when I was afraid, and he would protect me. We were not designed to have shame, and we were not designed to have guilt. However, it's here. And so we need to address it. We need to live in the real world. We need to address the fact that we have shame and that we have guilt. But the point of this whole story, and the thing that I really wanted to nail down this episode for not only you, but for my younger self, is that the first step to getting rid of shame and guilt is looking it in the face and admitting that you have shame and guilt. The second step of really getting rid of shame and guilt is forgiving yourself. I found myself in this spiral for a long time because I would admit, okay, I have a problem, but then I would feel shame for admitting that I had a problem, and then now I'm shameful for being shameful, for being shameful, for being guilty, for being shameful. We have to learn to forgive ourselves. I found that forgiving myself was harder than forgiving anyone I had ever come in contact with. The people in my life that I hated the absolute most, I was able to forgive them faster than I was able to forgive myself. We have to learn to forgive ourselves, brothers, and we have to take the time to show ourselves grace. If our God, creator of all things, can forgive me and wipe away all my transgressions, who am I, little Eddie, his son, to turn around and say, well, thank you, God, for forgiving me, but I'm going to hold on to this. I'm just going to keep this, and I'm going to stay mad at me, even though you've already forgiven me. How much sense does that make? We have to claim our healing and claim our growth, brothers. It's time for us to do better, to grow from our shame and our guilt so that way we can be the men that our wives and our children need us to be. So this week, think about where you're at with your mental health. We're going to keep talking about this subject. We're going to keep diving into character studies, and we're going to keep talking about how to study the Bible and how to extract these nuggets from the Bible that can speak specifically to you in your current situation. We're actually about to go start providing some Bible study activities and things of that nature and lessons on YouTube here shortly. We're recording that content now. I'm looking forward to debuting that with you all because I really want to not only help myself learn how to be a better man in Christ, but help you be a better man in Christ, but also help everyone understand that the Bible isn't as daunting as we make it seem. It's not as convoluted and it's not as crazy and can be actually a good way to spend some time to sit down with your word and have it reveal things to you. So we want to make Bible study part of your daily life. So I'm looking forward to continuing to connect with you all. God bless you all. Take some time and really dive into your mental health, and don't feel shame. Get yourself a therapist. Ain't nothing wrong with getting therapy. Two people you should always have in your life, a pastor and a therapist. And I will see y'all on the next one. God bless.